Hello, folks. Welcome to the ARW discussion.
Everyone.
We got a special guest today, Clark Easterling, and we're going to talk about casting with heat. So there's Clark right there. I said, well, there. Where's that camera?
It's right below me.
He's in the corner there. Those cameras are crazy. But anyway, Clark, I've been interested in all kinds of casting, and I don't know if you've done any of the oddball stuff like lost foam casting or stuff like that. Have you done any of that?
No, I haven't. I get asked about that a lot, but I get very little time to experiment with things like that. I don't have time to look up on the processes that I use now. Now, I am taking small steps towards investment casting, and so far I've messed up my first pattern off of that. So I'm waiting for the next pattern to come in. I think the problem with that was the material, the expansion rate was just too great as it was heating up to melt out of the shell.
Yeah.
But as far as
go ahead.
But I see these guys, I know what you're talking about. I mean, I've seen them put styrofoam in the sand and it looks like just regular sand.
Yeah.
And then just pour metal on it. Now, honestly, when you think about all the stuff that's going on in there, I don't see how you could have a good, dense, quality casting without porosity or gas holes all in it because of that. But, I haven't tried it, and I haven't cut one in half to examine it. So that's my theory on it.
Yeah. I bought a little junk furnace from Banggood the other day.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, once I get it lined out where I set, where I know what the heck kind of temperature it's showing on it, I'm going to try this lost foam casting myself. So we'll see.
From what I understood, your temperature was way out of sync.
Oh, yeah. It said
you might want to talk to Stan and get one of those Novus controllers to put in that thing. Just put you a regular K-type thermocouple in.
Yeah, well, it's got a K thermocouple, but the stupid little display is supposed to convert all that to centigrade,
Uh-huh.
But I'm sure that what it's displaying there is Kelvin, and if I'm going to get 1,000 degrees Kelvin, that's not going to do a good job of melting aluminum or anything.
Hey Harold, do you have one of those contactless temperature probes you could just double check it with?
Yeah, I've got one. It shows that the temperature that's showing on the gauge is not a temperature that'll convert over to the normal temperature.
You might be able to just reprogram the one you have, but you would need the manual for it because usually everything's in hieroglyphics when you're trying to program those things.
Well, I think it's a counterfeit controller on top of it all. The real Rex C100 is made in Japan, and this comes from China. And I got the manual on it, and I looked through the manual. And there's a whole lot of parameters that you can't get to in the one that I'm messing with. So I think it doesn't have those parameters.
Mm-hmm. I think you can get a decent PID controller for about $30.
Yeah, this is not decent, I don't think.
Nope. Yeah, I started working on the Foundry Furnace for the makerspace. I just cut the barrel down last weekend. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, I guess it was.
Yep.
How big of a furnace are you building?
It's based on a 30-gallon squatty drum. It's going to have about a 12-inch diameter by 12-inch tall chamber.
So the wall thickness is?
It's going to be about 4 inches thick, 2 inches of Castellite and 2 inches of ceramic blanket. 4-inch bottom, 4-inch top.
Have you poured it yet?
Nope.
Well, since you haven't, I helped a student build one. The student wanted to do it like that. And I'm going to tell you, that was a total disaster for that one that we built. It cracked immediately, which refractory does crack, but this literally just started crumbling. And we weren't using Castlelite 30. We were using some refractory out of Memphis, which was supposed to be suitable. But I'm not sure exactly. We had to paint the ceramic blanket, of course, to seal it. You know, you don't want any of your moisture escaping from your refractory. You can't have any porous surfaces whatsoever. So the blanket had to be sealed prior to that. And I think we still lost a lot of moisture through that.
Right.
So if I were building one, I wouldn't even worry with a ceramic blanket. I mean, you might want to wrap it around the outside of the metal if you're just trying to keep from getting yourself burned. But I would prefer to go with solid refractory all the way.
Okay.
But, you know, for a couple $100 more, you know, it just depends on what you're wanting to spend on it.
I'll have to determine. We picked up 3 bags of that Castelite. We may, the original build out called for maybe 2.15 bags. So we may actually have enough if I mixed it all up to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'll just have to run the numbers.
Right. I mean, unless you're looking for something light you can lift, ceramic fiber blanket is, you know, you can get your temperature up with that stuff, but it causes a lot of spikes with your burner. So it doesn't maintain a good equal balance when you're trying to melt. And it doesn't take but a few seconds of a cool down spike to really make things aggravate. Okay.
Now this stuff was the blanket was rated at 2,800. And of course the Castelite, as we all know, is rated for 3,000.
And that's fine if you can keep that temperature constant.
Right.
You know, that's the problem. If the wind's blowing the wrong way, you get a gust, you can cool down really fast and not see that coming, you know. But from my experience.
Billy, you going to go propane or oil fire?
It's propane. It's going to be a dual burner propane for now. Maybe at some point change it to forced air if we want to get into getting it a bit harder to do some stuff. I was hoping maybe to try to do some cast iron, but that's, you know, we're going to play around with aluminum and other stuff way before we even attempt to think about doing cast iron, because my understanding that's getting pretty dangerous.
Yeah. From my experience, it is. I mean, you're at 1/3 the temp of the sun, and yeah, I get burned at least once a month. It's just part of it. But the propane, I've heard of guys actually melting iron with propane. I don't know anybody that's done it, but I've heard somebody say somebody else did it, so I have to go by that.
Right.
I don't know how much gas you would have to use to get and maintain that kind of heat.
It may be completely not economical to do it. I don't even know. I was just building the furnace itself to be able to get to that temperatures.
Yeah, I've got one that we hauled back from Virginia last month, and that thing is natural gas. I don't know what I'm going to have to do to it to use it. I would prefer to go with propane. We do have natural gas here, but I'd have to run a line about 1.5 miles from the meter up here.
Man.
Wouldn't it just be easier to change out the orifice in it and be done with it?
What's that?
Change out the orifice.
Well, I'm going to have to break it down, and I have the schematics to it. I'll have to study all that, but I honestly don't even know how you light this crazy thing. It's I have no experience with this thing at all. It's made by Fisher Furnace Company, and it must have been built back in the 50s.
Mm.
So I'm not familiar with this at all.
Yeah. One thing about natural gas is it's usually delivered to like home or industry at 1/4 pound of pressure.
I was gonna say it's low pressure.
And to get heat out of it, you got to have higher pressure, probably 5 pounds. And
that's the other thing I'm worried about if I were to go that route. I mean, even our main supply line, you're probably only looking at a 2-inch line for the main out here. So, and this thing's got like 3-inch pipe. So
the way we're talking about, propane versus natural gas for the forges and stuff, and all the guys were saying you can do it with natural gas, but you're not going to get it near hot as you're going to go with propane.
Right.
So just stick with propane.
Well, this furnace, I'm going to strictly designate it for bronze.
Right.
That's as hot as I plan to get. So
I am on the lookout for a sand muller. That's one thing that we do not have. We're going to have to be doing it by hand up until we find something or make something.
Yeah. Finding a good quality muller. This second one I got is a Simpson, and I'm steadily having issues with it. Right now, I've got oil dripping. I got a seal leaking oil, I guess, into my stator housing. So I'm having to, as long as you run it every day, you don't realize it. I guess it slings the mess out of there. But if it pools up after about a week and you crank it up, it trips a breaker. So I need to address that, find out where it's pooling, and drill a drip hole. But to answer your question on mullers, they're hard to find.
Yeah, I've been looking and looking. I hadn't found any.
Build one.
I think I found one, and they wanted way too much money for it. I should say way more than what I was willing to pay for it.
Yeah. Somebody told me years ago before I ever got one, they said, if you ever find one, steal it.
Probably
it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
It'll probably be another maker project. We'll have to sit down and just make one.
That'd be the best bet.
Get another 50-gallon barrel, cut it down, throw some.
Get a gearbox. And
yeah, I mean, we've got some wheelchair DC motors that we could use, low RPM, something like that.
I actually built my first one, and it was out of a wash tub. And the turntable was particle board, and I had it mounted on a axle with lugs welded on there to screw into the particle board. And it actually worked pretty well. I got the wheel, it just had a single wheel in it. And it was off of one of those Harbor Freight English wheels, that big wheel that had. And I used it for probably 3 or 4 years before I actually got another one. But it would mull like 30 pounds, 40 pounds at a time.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I ought to check with Mark Pressling too. Looks like he's made a sand muller. He called it a Kuka muller. I remembered watching the video on him doing that.
Yeah, I can say that you probably don't want to go with natural gas. My big furnace, the one that I bought back in the 70s, runs on natural gas, and it'll turn the crucible, yellow to, up in the pretty hot temperatures, but there's no way it could ever melt cast iron.
No, but that would easily do bronze.
Yeah, it would do bronze.
Yeah.
Of course, all I got is big crucibles for it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the melting temperature on bronze, Clark, roughly?
Well, now our instruments are not calibrated, so I'm going by the set number that I have on the PID controller is 1900 Fahrenheit. But I think that's about 200 degrees higher than the actual temp. In other words, I think we may be off by 200 degrees on that. on the controller, because like I said, it's not calibrated. But as long as we always set that at 1900, it seems to do consistent. I do think it's around 1750. Don't quote me on that. 1750 to 1850, depending on the compositions you've got.
According to my Google Foo here, bearing bronze says 1675, and then it says bearing bronze contains mostly copper plus lead and zinc, bringing its melting point to 1790.
Okay, and also, you always need the reality of that is that might be the melting point in a vacuumed environment in a lab. But when you're trying to melt it in one of these furnaces, it usually requires an extra 100 degrees based off of what I've had to do.
So I would think you'd want some working time as well.
Right. And we have an electric one. We bought a very small one for pouring like drawer pulls and stuff like that. And it takes... It's probably the same capacity as the one you got, Harold. And you wait about 10 minutes. You charge it full. I don't usually do that with the fuel-fired furnaces. I usually do that empty and then add. But on the electric one, I charge it up and bring it all up to heat. Then once that melts down, I give it... I recharge it to fill it on up, and I think we wait 10 minutes with each addition, and it seems to work out well.
Yeah, this last time when I made the castings at Chuck's machining, I was putting stuff in there that was kind of leaning over the side of the crucible, and I got metal melted down into the bottom of the furnace, so I'm gonna have to clean that out too.
That's not good.
No, it melted and ran down the outside of the crucible. And leaning over too far, I guess, the pieces I stuck in there. So
now, which furnace is that?
That's my natural gas furnace.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I was going to tell you on that electric one. It would be wise, and I do it. I shut the power off when we pull the crucible, just if in the event you spill any metal down in there, it doesn't hit those elements. You don't want that happening.
This really looks weird down inside. I don't see any elements when I look in there. I see a round cylinder. It's got a finger-looking thing sticking up. And when you go to put the crucible in, it has to squeeze past that round thing, and it makes it really hard to get it back out. So
I wonder if that'll start wearing out a little bit with use.
I don't know. I'm going to take the thing apart and try to move it over against the side.
Yeah.
Because then that crucible can come in and out real easy. I don't want a thing full of hot metal and I go throw it up in the air and it lands on my head. My face is too pretty to be messed up like
that. Just be careful about adding wet metal to it. My wife and I were charging one about a month ago, and you always expect this to happen. You're always prepared for it, but it still shocks you when it happens. But some of the metal that we were dumping in the tube to pour down in the crucible was wet, and it popped so fast. It was, but usually if you're 2-3 feet away, the excess, if it's light enough, it cools down pretty fast before it hits you. So we got
So I have a question for you.
What's that?
Since we haven't built this thing yet, I'm trying to spec out the size of the actual hole in the top of the lid, and I was figuring somewhere between 4 and 6 inches for this size of chamber. And
how big is your intake on the tweeters?
They were either going to be dual 3/4 or dual 1 inch, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I'll have to go back and look which burners they were planning on.
All right, so as long as you get, the bigger the better as far as I'm concerned. You can always choke it down with fire pit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But it's hard to make a small hole bigger on that lid. But if the tweeters are no bigger than that, 3-inch, 4-inch, something like that. But like I said, if you want to choke it down with brick, go ahead and make it bigger and just adjust it like that. Just don't forget to remove the brick when you open the lid. That was an accident we had one time. I got in a hurry, and I was doing cast iron, and I picked the lid up, or I opened the lid, and the bricks slid off. They were white hot, landed on my plastic fuel line, and all that fuel hit. Luckily, the blower was off, but I didn't realize I had the wall on fire until I was coming back from doing the pour. Because
man,
field, you can't hardly see anything except what you're focused on.
Right.
So, yeah, that was.
This is going to be a swing away lid versus a.
Okay.
Yeah,
so it'll never
pick
tilt.
it up pick it up just a little bit and slide it over to the side.
Okay, that's like that furnace we got out there. Yeah, that you won't have a problem with that.
All right. I tell you what, one time I set my mold out there, the top and bottom half a little misaligned. And the metal started coming out the crack between them and was running down near my feet. And I'm trying to pour and wash my feet at the same time. No, that was nervous.
I have that happen often. You wear spats, I hope.
No, I don't have any.
Flip-flops. I want to get some.
Yeah, I probably should. People are always calling me out for being unsafe.
The one time mine really came in handy was right there at the Good of Land Festival over there in Texas.
Yeah.
I had the crucible tipped in my shank, and I had about 10 pounds hit my foot down there and land on it. And
man.
Luckily, my spats were there. If they hadn't have been, that would have been bad.
Yeah, I guess so.
But I kicked it off just as soon as it hit my boot, and but it landed right up there at the ankle, and I had some other probably about 5 pounds of it landed on my hand, on my glove, and the gloves that I was using at that time are rated for 1800 degrees for 30 seconds. They're not rated for 25 or more 100 degrees, and it took me at least 30 seconds to get that thing put down, and I had a bad burn on my hand there. But that was, and it always happens when everybody's there watching.
Yeah.
Or the camera's on.
Well, the cameras were on, and unfortunately somebody posted that on YouTube. I don't remember who it was, but luckily that didn't go viral.
Yeah,
I don't
right now.
For that.
Everybody's searching
kind of heats some tough stuff. I was putting stuff over in my foundry, and I got my glove too close. I was using pliers, but I got it too close to the edge, and the end of that glove just shrunk down like that.
Yep.
It was definitely not good with my finger.
Well, and I tell people ahead of time how hot this is. I said, unless you've been in a foundry, you just don't know. And I do these events like at the Soule Museum, and I will warn people ahead of time when I open that furnace, step back, get at least 10 feet away. And we usually have a little barricade, but it's only about 5 feet, and they don't listen. And when it's time to pour, I'm too focused on making sure I don't get anybody hurt. But as soon as I open that lid, you can hear them falling over each other behind me, trying to get back. They didn't take me seriously till then. But yeah, that radiating heat is pretty rough when you open that lid on them. But
I know it's hot because when I open the lid on mine, I don't like to be anywhere above it.
Right, it's rough, and it's very brutal, especially in the summertime. I can drink 3 gallons of water in an hour out there, I believe. And then when I'll shut the things down and go to bed, I never have to get up and use the bathroom.
Oh, maybe that's what I need to do. I get up every hour on the hour.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go, Harold.
Dehydrate yourself. That's the best way to do it.
It'd make it a lot more convenient.
Funny, I don't do any casting like you're doing, but when you're talking about hot material, I was using a cutting torch for arc welding with tennis shoes, and the slag went down onto my tennis shoe, and I felt the heat, and I go, oh, it's okay, it'll go away. And all of a sudden, I went, oh shit, it ain't going away. It ain't going away. Yeah. Trying to kick my shoe off and get my foot out of there as quick as I could.
Doing the happy dance.
Yeah.
And see, those burns are worse to me because the burns I get from this, they're so bad it kills all the nerves. So you don't really feel it after the first 20, 30 seconds. Burns like what you're talking about when you get from welding or that heat will stay in there forever, it seems like, for days on end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Earl. Well, I remember back in the 70s, I was cutting up some 2-inch thick steel. I had a big old piece of it on some jack stands. And I was cutting it with my acetylene torch. And I was just about at the end of the cut. And some of that molten metal fell down in my shoe. And I threw away the torch and almost killed myself trying to get that shoe off. And that sucker was hot.
Yeah, the worst burn I ever had, I was about 5 years old, and I stuck my finger in a cigarette lighter.
Oh. Did it light?
That was the worst pain I ever experienced, and I think that lasted a week.
I don't doubt it.
We're talking about footwear and stuff. I wear these things. I'm surprised nobody's called me out on it for wearing these in the machining area. I don't wear them for welding. Where's it at? Oh, that right there, that little slice, that's from a chip that I stepped on, and it sliced right up through there. Yeah. I won't be wearing that for casting or welding or anything. I got boots for that, but surprised nobody's called me out on the machining channel for wearing those in the machining area.
They'd give me athlete's feet. My feet sweat like crazy. I got to have leather shoes.
I'd hate to get chips down in those.
Huh?
I would hate to get chips in them.
I've stainless steel and aluminum chips in the bottom have happened. I've got to sit there with a pair of tweezers and pull them out.
Yeah, I've done that at the lathe with slippers on.
Yeah.
Don't do that anymore.
They are no slip. They definitely are no slip. Somebody was just commenting on here about their no slip. They're definitely no slip though. So,
yeah,
that's good. In fact, was there a chip in there? Yeah, there's some chips in there right now.
I went all the way to Florida one time to visit Adam Booth, and I went in his shop, and there was chips all over the floor. Looked like he had evenly distributed them over the whole place. And if I'd had shoes like that, I probably wouldn't have got out of there alive.
If I'd go to a place like that, I'd change into boots, but no. Yeah.
Well, I didn't expect to find that.
We try to keep it pretty clean there at the space, though. I mean, job is you come in, you do your thing. You're supposed to leave it as good as, if not better, than the way you found it when you leave.
That's
I wish
a good
people
idea.
would treat public restrooms like that.
Yeah.
That's another subject.
I can't stand flip flops. Somebody's talking about flip flops. I can't wear flip flops.
No.
I can't stand flip flop. Those are
No.
Yeah, you see those foreign forging shops or casting shops in India and so forth, and half of them don't even have anything on, barefoot, and the other half just have sandals on.
Yeah, those from Pakistan.
Yeah, and then just working away.
But the stuff some of those guys come up with is awesome, though. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, I saw one shop. The whole floor was their mold. You know, they had just had the shape down in the sand, and they just poured it in the floor.
Most of the old foundries were like that.
Were they?
Yeah. Yeah, the Sule was. Now, you know, I've seen the old pictures of it, how it was laid out. But that deal in Pakistan or wherever that's at, I get so aggravated because I've got an induction furnace. I got a good deal on. Well, I can't get power to it because I need 3-phase. It's got a 50 horse motor on it, and so it's sitting out here waiting on a phase converter. And not to mention, I don't know if I'll be able to get that much amperage in my lines for it once I do that. But I see this, and I hear them running an induction furnace in the background in these third world countries, and it just makes me so mad because I can't get it out here, but they can do it. And you hear it, and to top it off, you hear a donkey in the background. You know,
yeah. Well, they just drag a couple of wires out in the street and reach up and clip onto the power lines. Yeah, they don't have no meters or nothing.
Yeah, I believe it. But I'm going next week to Iowa for Thanksgiving on my wife's side. And I bought a 3-phase converter out at St. Paul. So I'm going to, while I'm up there, I'm going to go ahead and run on up and pick that up too. But it will I still got to get up with the power company and see what kind of requirements I'm going to have to meet to get that.
Money.
Yeah.
All things are possible with money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted over $100,000 to run 3-phase to my shop, so I said no thanks.
Yeah.
But it's about a mile or a half away from the closest pole, so that's why.
We're fortunate that we have 3-phase at the makerspace.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably down in the sort of downtown kind of area, right?
We're in South Knoxville in the city, so yeah. What's odd is that building actually used to belong to a electrical company that electrician company. They went out and did commercial panels and stuff for people.
Yeah,
and the outlets and stuff in there could have been better.
Yeah.
They didn't do a very good job at setting their stuff up at one point in time.
Well, it's probably kind of like the carpenters whose house is never finished. And I'm a mechanic. I'm a mechanic, and we just bought a minivan. Apart from that, our other vehicles need a little bit of quirky, fixing. Yep. And it's life.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, I tell you what, when I was a young guy, I was trying to get in the motorcycle business, and I was doing motorcycle repairs in my garage and stuff. And then I went in partners for a short time with a guy that I decided he was going to walk off with everything. So I got out of it. But then I went into doing machining out, and I would metalize the rotors out of electric motors, and the end valves on them, the bearing would wallow out the place where it's at. So I'd sleeve the end valves and metalize the rotors and do cylinder boring for the motorcycle shop. So I was always busy. This is all part-time sideline stuff. And I never did get into business for myself. Didn't work out. I guess it's too much work, not enough thinking.
Yeah, just all the other stuff besides just doing the work. The accounting and insurance and dealing with the city and everything else. Everybody forgets that part.
Yeah,
I was in business for myself for a while. It's not fun.
Yeah, that's kind of like being a supervisor in an evil polluting refinery or something. I had a couple of supervisory jobs, and I hated it.
I had the stress of it, having to deal with it. Making sure you get the paycheck, make sure you get all the bills. Everybody collecting all the money, paying your insurance. It's extra stress.
Yeah, it is. I'll leave that to somebody that likes it.
Yeah. It's a lot easier just to drop the tools at 3:30 and head for home.
Oh, yeah. We didn't get finished here today, boss. See you tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, I was shop foreman at the Chrysler dealer I was at for about 8 months. That was enough. I asked my service manager to put me back on the bench. I wanted to rip transmissions apart again.
Oh, boy. When I was a young guy, still in high school, I worked in this Conoco station, and the guy that run it had a transmission shop, and he closed that down and bought the station, but he couldn't stop doing transmissions. So he had this really wonderful air jack. He would lift the whole end of the car up, and I'd go out there and I'd pull the transmissions out, roll them over there, and he'd set them on the bench and work on them. And I don't think he was ever able to fix one of those out of the Buicks, those old Power Glide, I think it was.
Oh, like the 2-speeds?
Oh, Dynaflow. That's what they're called, Dynaflow. I don't think he ever fixed one right.
Well, the Dynaflows, those are the ones that had like basically the 3 torque converter elements in a row, weren't they?
I don't know. This has been like a million years ago, back when I was young, before they invented dirt.
Be like the 50s, 60s vintage. Yeah.
Yeah, these were 50 model Buicks. He had a deal with a gas a car lot that he would do them for such a certain amount, set them out, do their transmissions. And there was these 3 Buicks that just kept coming back, eating his lunch.
I wanted to give everybody an update. I ended up testing that motor again yesterday on another VFD, known good VFD. Motor's fine. It's the VFD causing issues. I think, like you were saying, Dean, I think one of the power units there is dropping half the phase.
Yeah, that's a pretty common failure. On the newer VFDs, or actually I shouldn't say newer, but the higher end VFDs, they'll actually tell you what's wrong with them. It'll tell you that it has an output fault or a diode fault, so forth. But the low cost ones, it's hard to tell because they'll.
I was just going to say, on Billy's channel, I said when I got an electrical problem, I call Carl. But Billy, if Carl doesn't answer the phone, I call Dean.
Well, I'm actually, somebody's saying bummer on the VFD. I'm actually happy it's the VFD. I'd have been way more bummed if it was the motor, because the motor would be a heck of a lot harder to replace than that VFD. Yeah, so in my book, that's an actual win. And maybe I'll tear into that VFD and find the burnt component and replace it, or. But I think I'm just going to replace it with the same one I've got in the other Bridgeport.
Yeah, 30 years ago we used to repair them. Now we just throw them away. They're not worth repairing. Yeah. As a business, but for yourself, if you can repair it, go for it.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of cool getting a second mill up in the machining area here.
Yeah, nice. I guess so. I spent my whole life just getting one mill. So you're doing good.
Well, it'll help with classes and projects, and even if somebody comes in and does an extended project, they need to leave their setup on the mill for a couple of days. At least we'll have another one for you that can be used.
Yeah. How many of you guys have done any heat treatment?
A little bit, small.
Yeah, just a smidgen.
Yeah. Not really.
Nothing huge.
I just got one of Stan's new hot shot ovens.
Yeah.
I've used it a couple of times for heat bluing and so on, but I haven't really had a heat treating project, although I've got a couple coming up shortly.
Yeah, I've used that heat treat oven twice now, and both times it was for bluing metal.
Yeah.
I'm getting the argon. I still got to get the argon set up so that we can start doing some heat treating in it.
Yeah, I've got the argon kit for it, but I haven't installed it yet.
I installed mine. I may admit, I think I did a video on where I screwed up the installation. I grabbed the wrong drill bit and drilled it out too big.
Oh.
I know. I went and found another piece of stainless steel and drilled it the right size and tapped it and stuck it between the skin and the fire brick and made a little washer to put over it so it would tighten down. I actually like that setup better because you don't have the exposed threads and stuff on it. It looks a little cleaner in my opinion. So
yeah, I'm jealous you guys of that with Stan's heat treating furnace. I just couldn't justify coming up with the cash.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, Stan makes a beautiful product, and even the ones made by American Kiln now are, they're really nice looking units. I just can't really afford $850 US here where I'm sitting. By the time I get it here, it's like 1,200, 1,300 Canadian, right?
Right.
So the flip side is, and I hope Stan won't be too mad at me, but a buddy of mine who's a machinist, when they were cleaning up, he works at a big machine shop here in Edmonton. They're cleaning out the junk room, and they gave me a whole pile of refractory board. So I have a bunch of refractory material and some blankety material stuff, and all refractory material. And at some point, that's on the to-do list. It's probably going to be next year, but you know, I hope he's not going to be too mad at me. But I'm probably going to borrow some of his dimensions.
I got the 1200. I may even be using it for doing a little bit of jewelry casting. We're talking casting, so I'm going to swing back into that again. So we're expanding the maker space. We're adding another bay, adding about another 1,700 square feet. So the machining area is going to be growing a little bit. And as such, we're going to be adding a locksmithing and a jewelry bench also. And I think that heat treat oven will do real good for making melting stuff to do jewelry and that kind of thing as well.
I've joined the lock picking lawyer. I can pick this lock pretty easy when I'm not on camera.
We're talking about heat treat ovens. You know, I don't know if this really qualifies as heat treating, but I do stress relief.
Oh yeah.
In a Paragon kiln. And I just retrofitted it. Matter of fact, Stan helped me with that, and I'm just running. I pretty much bypassed everything on there and went straight to the elements with the solid state relays and Novus controller and a K-type thermocouple.
Are you talking like the hexagonal shaped big Paragon type kilns? Yeah. My mom and dad have one of those, and my dad's former instrumentation retired, so he didn't like the control, so he wanted building a full, a visual basic interface and SSD and all that sort of fun stuff, and so he can actually program in the heat curve for cone 6, cone 4, cone whatever, or just flip the switch on and let her bake.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like what you did.
It's basically the same thing. Stan wrote made a program out for me for the cool down, not to cool down more than 200 degrees per hour. And, it works great.
And what's units?
Kiln, you can usually find those on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace for $50 to $100. Or in this area anyway. I don't know about where you're at.
So what do you have for stress relief? Is that just strictly cast iron, or do you have to do other cast materials too, like aluminum or something?
No, just cast iron.
Just cast, okay.
Yeah.
Clark, have you ever watched the Kelly Cofield channel?
What does he do?
He does lost foam casting.
I don't guess so.
You need to give it a look, because that'll make you even more interested in it. He was casting he's got some kind of a Ford with something like 6-barrel carburetor or something. He's making a great big old air filter holder, and it looks really good. Of course, he's got equipment I don't have. He's got a one of those 3D engraver things. And he put the Ford logo on it, all kind of fancy looking stuff. It was really impressive.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, that's what got me back into wanting to do this lost foam casting. I tried once 4 or 5 years ago, and all I made was a mess, But I'm
Harold, most of the stuff I've seen with that, they're taking those 3D printed or their molds, and they're doing caster plasting or something like that around it, and then burning it out before they pour the stuff in.
Well, this guy, he puts it into sand, looks like playground sand, and he vibrates it real good to pack it tight. And he's got a weird looking furnace. The outside of it lifts up in the air and leaves the crucible sitting there on the heating element in the bottom of it. And I thought, well, who had ever thought of that? That makes it easier to grab hold of that crucible for sure.
That'd be pretty heavy though.
Yeah, well, everything. When you get old, heavy's a lot smaller number then.
He probably had a counterbalance on it or something.
Yeah. This last one that he poured when he was making that air filter housing looked like he was having a little bit of work in there holding that big you know, he had a big crucible full of aluminum. So I imagine it's pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm.
That heat treating is what I had planned on talking about this time, but my heat treat expert wasn't able to show up. So I just lucked out and got Clark there for casting, and I thought, well, I've been trying for several months to get somebody to come on here that, you know, knew about casting, and today I hit the jackpot.
Well, I hope I'm not disappointing you guys.
No, you're not. Hey, this is wonderful information for a fact.
Yeah, it's nice to have you, Clark.
Well, it's good to be here with you guys.
One of the areas that a lot of that foam casting was done was the group of people that were making these gingery tools, the lathe and the mill and so on. And that was all done with the foam casting. And they would make the shape out of a piece of styrofoam and coat it with plaster, and then put that in the sand after it was coated with the plaster. And they actually just pour the aluminum right on top of it. And it just, I guess it just melts out and gases out.
Well, that was one thing that I was interested in, because when I was working at GM years ago, the 2.2 Ecotechs, if you look at the cylinder heads on those, it's actually got the texture of styrofoam. So they had some sort of really fine sand or something, whatever medium they were casting in. And I always thought it was interesting. It looked like styrofoam. I didn't realize till later it's because they made the forms out of styrofoam and then burned them out, or like filled them up. Right? I thought that was really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
GM was doing it for years.
Channel Lock casts all of their pliers and so on, the parts for the pliers, and they actually spray the form with a ceramic type coating.
It's a mold wash.
Forms a ceramic mold, if you will, and that runs through an oven that burns out whatever's inside of it, and then they pour the castings into them.
Okay.
This Cofield guy, he used sheetrock mud, and he dips the styrofoam in it and lets it just run off and dry. And at least sheetrock mud's good for something besides sheetrock.
I've got some mold wash I rarely ever use. It seems like the last time I used it, it was a disaster, and that stuff wasn't cheap. For a 5-gallon bucket, it was about close to $500.
Whoa!
And yeah. So I got bid on that one, and my supplier, he's thinking it's one of the ingredients in my sand having a reaction to it. But I hate spending that kind of money on stuff to improve my quality of castings, only to go the other way with it. You know?
Yeah, I guess so. I sure would. It's like that little furnace that I bought in here the other day. I got took on that thing, obviously, but I'm going to work on it and see if I can't make it into something good. It looks good when you look at it, so if I can make it work, then I'm ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see a teardown of that. See what that little finger thing you're talking about is, or get you a good controller for it.
Yeah. Well, number one, I'm pretty sure the controller is a knockoff of the real thing. Boy, Chuck's sitting by.
I think he's getting hungry.
He said he can probably smell tacos cooking over there.
Hey, I'm over here. My order's over here.
Yeah. And he can't call him because he's not using his phone.
That's my new location here. I'm in a living facility.
You just say, "Oh, look at that living facility."
My wife's in seeing her sister in there, but yeah, they said they were picking on me, but here I'm going to be living in that facility soon, probably.
Speaking of bluing, just tempering oven, I just have a couple $5 toaster ovens I picked up at the flea market.
They get hot enough?
That's right on the borderline. In fact, I bought some rock wool insulation, and I need to put some more insulation in it because they lose the heat too fast.
Yeah, I've got one that I was using for tempering.
Yeah, I made the mistake of doing it in the house once, just goofing around, experimenting, and yeah, I'm never doing it in the house again. Not just because the oil that gets burnt into this, it just stinks the house up. Thankfully, my wife was reasonably understanding, but yeah, I don't think I'll get away with it another time.
I've used my gas barbecue.
You got to do stuff like that when you're relatively newly married. Now, when I was doing motorcycle cylinders, I'd put a new lining in it. Well, I'd go in there and stick the sleeve in the refrigerator in the freezer, and I'd take the jug and I'd stick that in the oven and heat it up. And she didn't complain about it a bit. But now, if I was to even just mention it, I'd get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, we'd only been married by 2 or 3 years, so yeah, I got away with it.
Yeah, well, that first 2 or 3 years,
once,
the first year or two, you can say, "Well, honey, I got to go down and buy me a new 45 because they got out this good model." So okay, but by the third year, you say, "Well, just what are you needing that for?"
Yeah.
It changes. So if you're going to get away with anything, you got to do it early.
I got a story I'll tell you off camera about a rifle sale that we had that became one of those marriage learning moments.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of going up to the wife, and she was cooking some fried chicken, and I made the statement, "Well, that's not how Mom did it."
Oh,
Oh,
go over well.
Oh God!
You want to talk
Last time you had it, wasn't it?
At least you could still see out of your remaining good eye after that one.
Yeah.
I mean, this was maybe 3 months after we were married. It's oh my word.
Oh dear.
But she was all upset because it wasn't working. I said, "Well, that's because Mom. That's not how Mom does it." I don't know.
Well, I was at my mother-in-law's house, and my sister-in-law was there. She had made a pecan pie, and I hacked off a slice of that and tried to chew it. It was like a rock, like somebody burned a rock. And I said, "Dang, this pecan pie is some bad stuff." And oh my God, my wife jumped over there, grabbed a piece of it, started eating it, and my mother-in-law gave me a dirty look. And then my sister-in-law said, well, I did the best I could with it, and I haven't been able to live that down yet. It's been 40 years. No, it's been 40 years.
Yeah.
Go to the sister-in-law's house. Well, I hope this is all right. She set something on the table,
You'll never live that one down.
Every time you're in the doghouse, it comes up again.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've unfortunately, I don't have a little stop before I open my mouth. One of those things make you think, force. It just pours out of there, and then look what he said.
I see that. Yeah, that didn't happen with my mom.
Well, I tell you what, there was one time she was upstairs and I was downstairs looking up at her, and she said something or another, and I made the wrong comment. And then I thought, oh my God, I put my foot in my mouth, she's going to, and she started to chew me out. And I was just thinking how dumb I was funny, and I started to laugh. It was just like pouring gasoline on fire, And I was thinking, you poor idiot, look what you've done now. And it was funny. Yeah. Life's rough, especially for us rednecks. Which doesn't have anything to do with casting, does it?
Right.
No. Keep getting off topic. That's all right.
All right. I got a question for Clark. I mean, I'm clueless, but green sand versus Petrobond. What's one use versus the other use, or
depending on what you're pouring. Like for non-ferrous material, I use Petrobond on a lot of stuff. I've used green sand for the same things. Green sand handles the iron temps much better. You don't waste as much of the. You can pour it in Petrobond. I've done it, but it burns it up pretty bad. And the stuff isn't cheap, so I try to limit what I do with it as far as that goes. But to answer your question, bronze, aluminum, Petrobond, cast iron, green sand.
Okay, so the higher temperature stuff.
Yeah, and I honestly, I can't stand Petrobond. It stinks. It's nasty. It does leave a good finish. I can get almost that same quality of finish with some of the other sands that I've had, but it's just you pretty much have to have a muller for each median, right? You don't want to be having to clean the muller out, power wash it in between using, where you don't cross contaminate your median back in with the higher price sand or the finer sand. So with that said, the oil-based sands stay fresher longer, so to speak, where you have to mull every time with green sand to recondition it. We still use Petrobond. You could make your own oil-based sand as well, but I don't know. It's just as easy for me to just go ahead and buy the stuff.
Do you know what do they use for the bonding agent? Is it like a water or starch based, or?
They have clay in it. In your oil-based sands, your Petrobonds, you mean?
No, the green sand.
Okay, yeah. I have Southern bentonite. That's the main ingredient for the binder. Okay. But I also have fire clay in that. I don't have my list. I've got an ingredient list that I go by and that I've been using pretty much for the last 10 years. But then with cast iron, you have to have refractories in it as well. Your coal dust, that burns off the oxygen to help with the finish on it. Along with it creates a ribbon of soot inside the cavity as it ignites that coal dust to help kind of insulate the sand a little better to serve as a semi-refractory. So, because the soot's a carbon, 6,000 or more degrees to melt that. So I hope that answered your question.
I didn't know it was that complex. That's quite a few different ingredients.
That's the ones I can think off the top of my head. I do have some other material that I put in there as well, but that's the main parts right there.
Interesting. What would you recommend for just somebody getting going and doing aluminum?
Aluminum, just strictly bentonite and sand. Just that's you're not going to hurt a thing with that. Not at that temp. And bronze as well. You can get away with that in bronze. It does have a little burn in, depending on if you're running it on the high side of the heat. But I haven't. Back years ago when I first got into this, before I ever got into the iron part of it, it was just strictly clay and sand. So,
yeah, that's what I meant. I went up to Dallas to visit my in-laws, and I went by this Foundry supply, and I loaded my pickup up with that green sand and a couple of bags of bentonite, and I mixed it all up myself. I've got a lifetime supply in that one little container out there, and I got another one outside that hadn't been mixed yet.
Yeah.
Been out in the weather for a long time. I hope it's not full of water.
I'm running low on sand. I need to get more, and I'm in a dilemma here. I need to go ahead and stay consistent with what I've been using, and just get a super sack of that hauled in. But it's as tempting as it is. We've got and I still haven't been able to get an appointment with a guy to go check this, but I wanted to take some of my sieve dishes and test it. This guy claims that his sand is the finest around here, and if I could get a dump truck load of that for $150, and it turns out to be just as good as what I'm buying, then the Obeling, then I may go that route. You don't want to make a big change like that in the middle of this. So because you know I like to start off small and do tests as I can to see what kind of results I'm going to have. But,
send some to Betty, let him try it out first.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm definitely
I got to at least get Keith Rucker's job out of the way before I go experimenting. I'll be anxious to get that job done. We're working on the 12-inch straight edges now, for those of you that are interested. And I was really hoping to have several hundred casts by now, because of certain things that's been happening. It's been very challenging
I guess so.
to do. And but for those that are monitoring that, they are coming. I am working on them, and I've pretty much shut down on everybody else's just to keep this rolling. And with holidays coming up, with us having to leave, it's going to put an even bigger pinch on operations around here.
I guess so. Well, guys, our hour is up, and we're going to have to say goodbye. And thanks for showing up to watch the live stream. And I want to thank all these fine gentlemen for showing up and making it work. And that's it. You guys just keep on keeping on. I'll see you next week.
It was great talking to you guys.
Nice seeing everybody.